Hi, and welcome to our next session of How I Raised. Today I have Ray Mountfort, who's the founder of Essential Queensland. Now, I come across Ray. When did we meet, Ray?
Last year, 2019.
Mate, that's right, because it was actually in the UK. So look, you know,
Singapore.
Ray's been Singapore. Okay, so Ray's been a client of Wholesale Investor, and it's been fascinating for me to share this journey with Ray, because there's been some ups, there's been some downs, and then 2020 has been such a remarkable year, you know, for you as a company. So what I want to start off with is just to give you an indication, is just let us know a little bit about your background and sort of I suppose the area or the industry that you're a specialist in.
Yeah, okay, so we're sustainable chemicals, taking resins and stuff, resins and terpenes out of pine trees. And we're just commercializing a new process to do that here in Australia.
Now, this is obviously a very technical business, Ray. So I imagine when you're presenting this to investors, sometimes it can be hard to sort of communicate what you do, because they're probably often not technically savvy in this area. So what I'd love to so help people understand what are some of the frustrations you experience in sort of communicating this to investors.
Yeah, I think that was a real journey, Steve, because we, you know, those first two times over in Singapore and even in London, was really just learning how to present. And, you know, I got some positive feedback. We also got some negative feedback. And, you know, probably the biggest thing I learned was I needed to talk about where our products went so people could actually connect with us. You start talking about chemicals, it's just something that's not necessarily that sexy. Doesn't mean that it's not profitable, because there's a lot of really profitable companies. But we're just trying to connect, you know, with a marketplace that had been sort of, I guess, growing up on apps and Bitcoins and, you know, that sort of thing. And it's coming back from, you know, it's actually interesting though, as we, you know, as COVID has kicked in, then manufacturing has started to be the word that everyone's listening to in the media, and that, so it has become easier to,
especially if you add advanced to it, especially if you add advanced manufacturing to it, it seems to be a lot easier.
Yeah. So yeah, it was really quite frustrating, quite difficult.
And I know, and just to heighten that, because this is the stuff people never really like to talk about, right? I remember me and you had some tough conversations at one point where you were frustrated with some of the investors that you were having discussions with. And I remember specifically we had a chat. I think it was like late January, sort of early February.
Yeah, might have been Melbourne or Sydney, somewhere like that. Yep.
Yeah, I remember being in like regional. Anyway, and I sat there and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to help. Like, and this is my brain, right? When I hear someone's having a challenge, I want to try and help sort of solve. And I remember chatting to you at our emergence event, and we were talking about, and I asked you, so Ray, tell me about Essential Queensland. I remember we had this like 15-minute chat. I said, okay, we need to make this a lot simpler. But what I find interesting is you did find the right person for your business. So let's talk about that as a journey. And because I want to sort of communicate how this process typically unfolds.
Yeah. So we did find the right investor, and that was, you know, it was hard work. And I want to go back even further, Stephen, just talk about that. To have the time to find that right person, we had to put aside the right amount of money, because you know, raising capital is not just how much it costs to engage wholesale or someone to help you with your presentation or a bit of coaching and all that. It's also, you got to keep your organization running, and that we actually, you know, for us to get to where we've raised, you know, this year now, you know, nearly $6 million, well, it's over that. You know, we needed to spend, it cost us $700,000. And that,
obviously not all with Wholesale Investor. Let's make that clear.
I thought you'd jump at it. Nowhere near that with wholesale. But no, you've got to keep, because our business, when you're in a startup phase, your business is, you know, it's no good having a great business idea, but you've had to lay everyone off while you're waiting to raise capital. You've still got the rent to pay. You still got to try and keep progressing the business. And so,
that's such a great point, because, and that's also an emotional process as well. And I don't think people quite understand that, as you're going on this one side where you're dealing with frustration and rejection from investors, but at the same time, you've got that anxiety about your own business, your cash flow, and basically keeping the lights on for the staff.
Will we still be alive when we do finally get an investor? And it's that's sort of that was my mantra through that whole period, was just manage it, stay alive, and stay positive, but not to change direction. Our direction was, this is what we need to do. We're a manufacturing business. We need manufacturing equipment. That's the investor we're looking for. And so when we did, Ken came along in December, and actually, and this is the way network works, is that through that period of, you and I had that conversation, and then I basically said, hey, this is, it's just doesn't seem to be working for me. And that you said, and I remember you saying to me, all you need is one. And it might not have been to me. You might have actually said that from up the front, because that's one of your mantras, and so we still stayed engaged. We still, hung in there, because, and it was, getting Ken on. He then, brought with him, he's in that space of chemicals. Now
let's talk about Ken, right? Because you can talk about his sort of background and so forth. So the person he's talking about is Ken, actually used to be a former client of Wholesale Investor. And a funny story is, I remember Ken rang me up one day and said, Steve, the companies on Wholesale Investor have really improved lately. I go, oh, thanks, Ken. Appreciate that. Always looking to, improve the quality of companies. And I was like, oh, which company are you referring to? He goes, I really like this Essential Queensland. Now, what you didn't know at that time, he actually registered interest in WI as well. And he basically went through our information. He said, look, he goes, mate, I love what you're doing. You're going to be successful no matter whether I come on board or not. He goes, I can't really add value to you as a company, but I really love Essential Queensland. And I thought that was a really interesting thing. So here's me in this situation where I've got my former client, right, who's stepped off from being CEO of an ASX listed company, who's now in the private investor seat, and he's expressed interest in one of our clients. And I know it's a perfect fit, because I remember I used to joke with Ken about asking how many people are waking up each day excited about, the sort of conversion of sugar process and excited about clean chemicals. And he goes, as long as I only ever find one or two every time I do something, he goes, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's right. No, it's been a perfect fit, and there's always that turn and throwing, and we had to be, you had to be open to that, and you had to be open to change. I think
how did it, because at that time it was basically you were driving the business. You didn't really have a board built at that stage. So just give some indication how sort of Ken's made a difference to the company.
We basically it's you've got to a point where we have done a pilot plant. We've got some orders. We've got a site. We've got all the balls in the air that we need for that investment. But at that point, we didn't have, probably that the weakness would be, we didn't have a strong board. We had me, and we had a board members in waiting, but I didn't want to. As soon as I brought them on, I knew that's extra cost, so it's a ball I had to bounce.
Always the dance.
Yep, and so by bringing, once Ken came on, the thing that Ken really brought with him was that next level of excitement, enthusiasm, encouragement, and new blood, and I can't really emphasize that enough, because I've been involved in other investments and things where the new investors come on with a total power trip. They're not for you. It's actually quite confrontational. They're trying to get everything they can. They're not, their focus is not necessarily on grabbing a hold of and joining with your vision that you're trying to promote. And Ken, the stars were aligned there, and Ken just said from the start, look, I'll bring this much, but I believe I can bring 3 times that much in other connections. And that, so I said, okay, let's see you do it. And he did it. And, he didn't just bring the money though. He also brought another very important, person who joined our board. And then later on, those connections have led to other connections. And so it was a real domino effect happening, where he, where Ken was able to be particularly in this investment area, but also in the construct of really just going back over the business plan, going back over, the startup plan, the build plan, all of those elements, and refining them, but giving that enthusiasm and that reassurance to continue. Yeah.
And let's make some points about this, right? Because often as founders, we get told about how a capital raising is meant to be. We get told that our business has to be absolutely perfect. We get told that our business plan has to be perfect. We get told that everything has to be perfect for us to get money, right? And then if it's not, we get made to feel like there's something wrong with us. And what I love about this space, and your experience is a perfect example, is everything doesn't have to be perfect for them to come on board. I've noticed exactly like in Ken's situations is where they feel they can add value is often sometimes the weakness of the business. And they can bring in their strengths. And also what is beautiful about that story, and we see it obviously over and over, is that you're never really just getting one person, right? Because as I said, they come with 20, 30 years of networks in one space. And I know Ken's got international networks as well. So all of a sudden you go from, it doesn't matter that it was previously Ray, working from regional Queensland, trying to build his business. All of a sudden you become, okay, you're now working with someone who is a former listed company CEO. He's actively invested into the company and bringing along the networks that already like, trust, and respect. Yeah. That's the power of this space.
Yeah, it opens those doors. And I think, there's probably a key thing that you're sort of talking around there, Steve, and that's that our mentality needs to be one of making room. When we go to want investors, we have to make that room for them to come in and be prepared to not just, it's not just on paper. It's being a starter, you're carrying this baby, so it's an emotional space that you've got to be prepared to give up and to listen to other people's ideas. But at the same time, you've still got your little patch that you need to make sure that we're still playing in that patch, that we're not getting diverted somewhere else or anything like that. And that's about trying to, discern, is this the right investor? And, I'll be, prior to Ken, we had other people, but organisations offer us, in one case, huge amounts of money for just 20% of the company. But it was never, I would have just been an employee, and the company would have always just been a chemical supplier captive to that company. So it was basically sell out before you get going. You'll get the benefits of growing a big, reasonable sized company, because it would never reach the heights that it will reach now by holding out until we got the right investors and the right structure. And so, I'm glad I did hold out, but gee, the 2 years from when I had that offer to
I bet there was plenty of nights of doubt and lots of sleepless nights at that.
Particularly, and I know, Shirley sitting next to me here, she said you should. There's plenty of times we should have taken that. Money.
Ray, you actually said something really powerful then. It's our job as founders to make room, right? I really like that as a comment, because I actually learned this from one of my shareholders, and he gave me tips on sort of engaging shareholders. And I sort of had the philosophy that I'm happy for my shareholders to be as engaged or disengaged as they desire. And if they want to be engaged, I'll be as support. And you get to the point where when you actually meet someone who has disengaged shareholders, you actually feel for them, because you realize how much weight they're trying to carrying everything themselves. And then you start to think yourself, do you know what? I've got my shareholders helping me in this area, this area, this area, this area. And like what you said, you were struggling for capital for quite a period.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now you've raised $6 million this year in probably one of the hardest possible times to raise money for a private, and I do want to add to that, right? So you've raised $6 million. what else has happened in that time frame? Because this is the next fun part of the story.
Yeah, well, we're not so private anymore, are we?
Correct.
So I think as of the 1st of December, I'm now contracted as the managing director of an ASX listed company. So,
and what an amazing story. Now, if me and you had that chat, when you think about when you were experiencing that frustration, sort of 12 months ago, at no point would you imagine if someone said to you, okay, just Ray, just be patient. Over the next 12 months, you're going to raise $6 million and you're going to be acquired by a listed company, all because of one contact.
Yeah.
You would have thought I was mad.
Yeah. I've always believed in miracles. So, you don't want to even discount that it's going to happen. And, we do look back on this whole journey, because this is a snapshot with wholesale, but there's more to the story. And
absolutely.
And so, I think what you're saying is that, and I totally agree, is that we can't, we can make our plans, but the steps that we take are directed often by other influences. And, we can't decide, we can't decide what the outcome's going to be. We can just control. We can control. And
but the one thing that you did was you made yourself visible. And the words that I love is you manufactured serendipity, right? If you really think about it, there's only a few people in the country that actually really understand your area.
Yeah.
And who would have thought they're sitting in our ecosystem, and can play that kind of role.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'm still sort of thinking about the new investors that have come on even in this process of as we're transitioning into Leaf Resources, and I got to meet I think 8 of them about 4 nights ago over in Perth. Now that the lights are open, and so we were down at the Hamptons and had a drink and snacks and met these really lovely people that, again, they were all chemicals people. Some of them, some were at different stages of their journey, but they had all made an investment. And I think the interesting thing, the best thing, was the level of engagement that they had. It's just what you're saying, is they were interested in where we were at as a business, where we were going as a business, how we fit in with the new company, and how the new company would fit in with us. How, what was my plan to take them forward. But there was also, that's all great. That's all that sort of, stuff. But then it was also, there was a lot of input there around what could they give. So we were talking about. Oops, dropped my. We were talking about, ships going out, and what's on those ships, and that product, all of that sort of stuff that is really good intel. I think the engagement, I was really encouraged by that level of engagement from new investors. The fact that 8 turned up on short notice as well.
It's brilliant. And look, obviously, just sort of as a final question, what would be your key tips for sort of other founders that are in sort of similar, whether it be business, even if they're in technology business, but more technical businesses like yours? What would be your tips for them when they're going through the capital raising process?
Yeah, stay alive.
Don't run out of money.
Don't run out of money. But you do run out of money.
Yeah.
And you've got to find a way. And because you can't put it, one of my mates used to always say to me, it's always darkest before dawn, okay. and so, going through this process, and COVID hit and all of those things happened. And even then and I was like, are these guys all going to pull out now? You have all those doubts and I just keep going back, whenever I have those doubts, and I go back to looking at the fundamentals of what my business is. Are they sound? Yes, they're sound. Is it worth, is it worth it? Yes, it's worth it. There's a value that I'm offering with. Yes, it's worth it. Okay. Well, then we find a way to get through this. We've got to keep paying the rent. Sometimes you're negotiating that. You're ringing up the landlord and saying, hey, can you give us a month? Different suppliers, different costs. and always taking all the stakeholders on the journey. I found that if I'm open with people about where we're at, what we're doing, they're prepared to give you a lot more leash than if if suddenly you just go quiet and go into your shell. So plan for the success, but at the same time, it could take longer. And if it takes 1, 2, 3, 6 months longer, then make sure that you've got some resources there to do that.
And mate, I'm just going to add to that as well, because I think that's just such good advice on the, how people negotiate in the challenging times often turns out how they sort of deal in the good times. And, part of that process is actually just reselling yourself on what you're actually doing and the direction you're going.
Yeah.
Well, Ray, really appreciate the time today, mate. I said I've loved watching your journey, especially. I said when I think back to, I wish I had recorded that conversation. I remember when I was standing. Because to me, I said, as you know, I've seen this so many times with founders, and the thing I always want to remind founders is this is a long journey, and but you know what? Sometimes that right person has said they can make. I know it's happened to me, and I've seen it happen to so many companies, and you are one of the best examples of me witnessing that over the last 12 months. So congratulations to you.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy your time as a listed company director now, as opposed to just being a private company by yourself, and what sort of comes next in 2021.
Yeah, thanks very much, Steve.